The city slept under silver towers that reached for the clouds, and somewhere near the edge of that glittering skyline stood a mansion that screamed of wealth and power. Guards in black suits lined its gate, and tinted cars rolled in and out like shadows obeying orders. Inside, the marble floors shined so bright they could blind a man, but tonight the echo that bounced off those walls wasn't the sound of laughter or luxury. It was fear, a crash, a broken vase, a muffled cry. Everyone in that house heard it, but no one dared move. The staff, the guards, the assistant, each had learned that silence was safer than conscience. Because the man who ruled this mansion wasn't just rich. He owned people's futures. He owned the city's contracts, the banks, the officials. They called him the CEO, but in whispered tones. Some called him something darker, the man you don't cross. He stood there, tall and furious, veins bulging, eyes burning with the kind of rage that only power could feed. Every time something didn't go his way, someone paid for it. And tonight his wrath had found its way home. The woman he once vowed to love now stood trembling before him, a faint bruise on her arm and one hand protectively resting over her belly. She didn't scream, she had learned not to. Her silence was the only thing she could still control. Outside, thunder rolled across the dark sky, as if heaven itself was protesting what no one on earth dared to. The maids turned their faces, tears quietly sliding down, wishing they could help but knowing what happened to those who tried. The driver once spoke up for her. He disappeared the next morning, his car found at the bottom of a river. Everyone knew the message. The CEO's world had no heroes. But fate doesn't stay silent forever. Sometimes justice walks in wearing leather jackets and steel boots. It began earlier that afternoon, miles away, at a roadside diner where engines rumbled louder than conversations. A group of bikers had stopped for coffee after a long charity ride. They weren't the type people expected to be heroes. Tattoos, scars, and the kind of faces life had already punched too many times. But beneath the roughness was something rare: honor. They helped veterans, protected abused kids, and raised money for shelters. They called themselves the Iron Brotherhood. Their leader, a man everyone called Stone, sat by the window, sipping black coffee as rain began to fall. He wasn't a man of many words, but when he spoke, people listened. He had seen war, seen injustice, and something inside him refused to walk away when others turned their backs. That's when a young delivery boy rushed into the diner, soaked and shaking. He had a package in hand, but his eyes were terrified. "Sir, you ride near the city, right?" he stammered. "You know that big mansion near Hillcrest? Something bad's happening there. Real bad. I just dropped food off. I heard her crying." Stone looked up. The others stopped laughing. The youngest biker, Ace, clenched his jaw. "You sure?" Stone asked. The boy nodded, eyes wide. "Nobody's doing anything. The guards, they just stand there." For a few seconds, the diner went silent except for the rain tapping the glass. Then Stone stood, grabbed his keys, and said 6 words that would change everything. "Then we won't stand either." Engines roared alive like thunder. The Iron Brotherhood rode through the storm, leather soaked, headlights cutting through the darkness. They didn't know what waited at that mansion. They didn't care who the man was. All they knew was someone inside was helpless, and that was enough. Meanwhile, inside the mansion, the storm outside was nothing compared to the one brewing in the CEO's heart. He paced like a predator, breaking glasses, shouting words that cut deeper than blows. "You think you can defy me? You think anyone would believe you?" he snarled, towering over her. She stayed still, breathing through the fear, her fingers brushing her belly again, reminding herself that she wasn't alone. She whispered softly, "I'm not afraid anymore." Those words froze him. For the first time, she looked him in the eyes. The rage on his face twisted into disbelief. No one ever spoke to him like that. But before his hand could rise again, the house lights flickered. A deep rumble shook the driveway. Outside, 7 bikes rolled in like thunder gods arriving at a battlefield. The guards rushed out yelling, "You can't be here." But the bikers didn't slow down. They parked right at the steps, rain pouring over their helmets, engines idling like growling beasts. Stone stepped off first, his boots splashing on marble. "We heard someone needed help," he said calmly, his voice echoing in the cold air. The guards drew their weapons, but Stone didn't flinch. "Tell your boss," he said, "that the world's watching tonight." Inside, the CEO's arrogance cracked just a little. He ordered his men to handle it, but one guard hesitated. Fear of the CEO was strong, but fear of crossing a biker gang with nothing to lose was stronger. The sound of boots echoed in the hallway. Stone and two others walked in, dripping rainwater on the polished floor. The housekeeper gasped softly, covering her mouth. For the first time, hope entered that mansion. When Stone saw her, shaking, broken, and still shielding her belly, his jaw tightened. "We don't hit women," he said quietly, looking at the CEO. "We protect them." The CEO laughed, a cruel, arrogant sound. "Do you have any idea who I am?" He sneered. Stone's reply was cold as steel. "A man about to find out what it's like to be powerless." The tension was thick enough to cut. The CEO's guards moved forward, but the bikers didn't back down. One by one, more bikes rolled up outside, dozens. The entire Iron Brotherhood had come. The mansion lights flickered again, as if even electricity feared what was coming. Stone stepped closer. "You can buy the law," he said, "but you can't buy respect. And you can't buy your way out of this." For the first time in his life, the billionaire CEO looked around and realized money couldn't save him here. Not from them, not from truth. The woman, still silent, still strong, finally took a step back from him. Stone nodded at her, a small gesture that said, "You're safe now." The rest of that night would become legend in whispers. The police arrived, called not by the CEO but by one of the staff who finally found the courage to act. The bikers didn't raise fists. They raised voices, witnesses, cameras. They made sure the truth couldn't be buried this time. When the officers saw the bruises, the fear, the cameras flashing, they knew the world was about to see a side of power it had never seen before. By morning, news vans filled the street. The CEO was escorted out in handcuffs, his empire collapsing faster than the rain could wash away his footprints. And among the crowd stood the bikers, helmets off, watching silently, not for fame, not for glory, but because justice had finally taken a breath in that house. As dawn broke, Stone looked back one last time. The woman stood in the doorway, tears and relief mixed on her face. He gave a small nod and said only, "No one hurts the innocent, not while we're around." Then, with a roar of engines, the Iron Brotherhood disappeared down the road, leaving behind not destruction but redemption. And as the sun rose, a new whisper began across the city, the kind of whisper that gives courage to those trapped in silence. When the bikers ride, justice rides with them.